And now we are joined excuse me, I'm just going right to your name, by Brian Burleson of Gearbox, and we're going to talk about Borderlands 2 VR.
How's it going, man?
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
So for those of you who are here physically in our very presence, we have a bunch of Borderlands 2 VR stations set up so you can actually try it out for yourself, which I highly recommend because that's how VR works. You have to put the thing on your head. I'm sorry if that's scary for you. That's part of the experience. Yeah, Brian, can you tell us a bit about how this came about? Like, how did Borderlands come to VR?
Oh, geez. So, you know, we were doing a lot of experimenting. We have a team that does a bunch of innovative, neat little projects, and we were doing a Penn and Teller project, and we were exploring other things we could do in VR. And so in part of the discussion, Borderlands came up. And so what can we do in the Borderlands franchise? And so we had a bunch of really cool ideas, but at the end of the day, one of the programmers had messed around with getting it working in VR. And once we put that on, we were just like, yeah, we gotta do this. And so that's basically how it started.
So obviously, like, Borderlands has like huge fan base. You got cosplayers out there doing all the panel lines on themselves and everything, and people are waiting around with bated breath for maybe another numbered installation in the series. But like, what's that like for the Borderlands legacy?
Well, contributing to it's great because one of the things about Borderlands 2 VR is you get really immersed in the universe again, and that is something that, I mean, the game came out 6 years ago, and so getting people back into the universe and really understanding the storyline in Borderlands 2 is one of the things we really wanted to make sure was as strong as it could be in VR.
So obviously with VR, like, I think there's a misconception that when people, like, when they hear VR is working out, there's like...
What? Oh, no, they were laughing. I think it up.
Oh,
go ahead, you're good.
Oh, what happened? I don't know what happened. No, I was going to say, like, obviously there's this thing where when VR first came out and everyone's like, you're like, you just assume that first person automatically translates and jumps over there. And you're like, oh, what's my favorite game in first person? How would that translate to VR? And like, in some cases, that might make you hurl. And you guys have made some tweaks to Borderlands to make it work better in VR. Can you talk about like adapting the first person, run and gun experience to something that maybe you got to pump the brakes a tiny bit?
Well, the thing about VR, because a long time ago when they started touring the different headsets and trying to understand like what the potential of VR could be, we had a bunch of the companies come by, and we were thinking, man, this is great for first-person shooters, because being able to just aim and point at something is so much more interesting than just having a controller to do it. And you can imagine, because some of the demos they had were really cool, because you could like duck behind things and get really engaged in the combat. And that type of movement was a place you could innovate, because we've been making first-person shooters for a long 25 years. And being able to have another opportunity to actually contribute differently for first-person shooters was a challenge we wanted to tackle. And but there's complications to that. VR is once you're immersed in it, you can get all kinds of different desires to play different ways. Some people really want to be like, they want to shoot and whack things and be really involved. Some people just want to sit there and play. And so in this, we put a lot of different control schemes, a lot of movement schemes, a lot of the comfort settings to make sure that you can play this for a very long time without having any type of issues. And so we saw a lot of people who went before us, and we said, those were good ideas. And we just gobbled them up and put them in there.
One of my favorite things about VR is less so like the crazy action stuff, because that sort of works on a per game basis, but that it takes a lot of very simple, sometimes even mundane things and makes them incredibly interesting. Like, one of my favorite things in Batman VR was like picking up a clipboard and just holding it and being like, I'm holding a clipboard! But for any other video game, like, I'm holding a clipboard, I want to go like shoot my Batarang. Were there any moments in the development of Borderlands VR where you're kind of like, I'm doing something that's like, not the most interesting thing in the world, but it's like really fun and really interesting now all of a sudden?
Oh, hell yeah. There's so Borderlands is a game about guns. And so in the game, you can pick up any of those guns that you find on the ground and actually check it out and look at it. And sometimes like turning it around and seeing the backside of it, because you really can't see the backside when you're playing it normally.
Right.
And so the artists put a lot of effort into parts of the guns you just don't really see. And that was really kind of fun to be able to pick up a gun and turn it around and actually see how it all works together. So that was one of those moments of just holding a gun was really rewarding.
And just like analyzing it from different angles.
Yeah.
You guys, when you were